Happy Monday, guys. We are here to talk about reverse dieting, which we've talked a lot about on the podcast, but we figured we wanted to do like a podcast dedicated to it because we also just talked last week around periodization. So we figured it would be a perfect time because in those podcasts, if you haven't listened to them, go back and check them out. They're really solid information in there. In the maintenance phase and in the priming phase, I would say in both of them, we go through usually some form of reverse dieting. In the priming phase, a lot of times when people come to us, they are under eating consistently. So like they might not be under eating every day, but they're under eating consistently enough to where their body's not getting adequate nourishment for a long enough period of time. In the maintenance phase, once you come out of a cut phase and like under eating to instill weight loss, we need to reverse diet back up to a maintenance. So this is in a couple of different scenarios. So we wanted to talk about what it looks like.
Yes. So one of the best quotes is from a guy that we follow, Alan Aragon. He's a nutritional research, and he presented and kind of paraphrased reverse dieting really, really well. So I am going to quote him here because I think this is going to be really helpful as we move throughout this podcast. So the broad definition of reverse dieting, the broad definition of reverse dieting is a gradual incremental reintroduction of calories. This is generally done mostly from carbohydrates, but for some individuals, it can be done from carbs, fats, and protein. But we're bringing them back into the diet for a prolonged period after the dieting phase, or again, if you are adapted. And there are really no universal like set of rules here around reverse dieting, but the general incarnation in coaching circles is to increase carbohydrates and to a lesser degree fat and protein on a weekly basis in order to go up by about 100, 200 calories. Okay. So this is what we would do incrementally over the course of a few weeks until we were able to get to that maintenance level. And then this is where we either make the decision to hold steady or continue on into the bulking phase or surplus phase, which we also talked about in periodization. And so part of what Becca and I do and why this is so important, and I think it's very, very beneficial for people to have a coach and accountability throughout a reverse diet, is because there's a lot of aspects to it, right? Like we want to look at quality of food. We want to monitor biofeedback. We want to focus on, incorporating non-stressful movement, but most importantly, work with clients through the mental aspect, because we get it. It's very, very hard, especially if you have been in a place where you've maintained your weight eating a low calorie intake. It seems ass backwards to say, well, if I'm maintaining here, why would I increase my calories? I'm afraid of gaining weight. But sometimes it is absolutely necessary, which we've talked a lot about. And I feel like we're getting to be a broken record here. But it is absolutely necessary, especially when we are in a place where we are either adapted or we are struggling with poor biofeedback signs and symptoms. And so a couple of those things that I would say are telltale signs is, number one, sleep and energy. Like you might be sleeping through the night, but you wake up and you still feel tired. Maybe you're taking energy crashes throughout the day. On the flip side of that, maybe you're not able to sleep at night. You're like wired and tired, or you fall asleep for a few hours and then you're waking up and you're kind of tossing and turning. So that's number one. Number two is digestively. Like maybe we have bowels that are not regular and we are going to the bathroom 2 to 3 days a week, or we're flipping back and forth between solid form stools to loose stools, dealing with bloating, gas, heartburn, acid reflux. And why is that so important? That's very important because number one, we need to be going to the bathroom daily to excrete excess waste and toxins from the body. But two, when the gut is not in check, it can create a lot of other dysfunction in the body. And part of this is malnourishment. And when we are under eating calories and or we are eating poor quality of food, we are malnourished. We're missing on vitamins, minerals, nutrients, key things that we need for the body to function optimally. So those would be the kind of like top two things I would say, in addition to, stress, which we've talked a lot about, just because being in a calorie deficit is a stress to the body. Plus we think about all the other mental, emotional, psychological stress.
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, this is kind of individual with what clients we take down this route and how quickly we go this route. Because here's the thing, there's also different camps of like the belief around how reverse dieting should be done. There is the camp of incremental increase, which we agree with just because mentally it's a little bit easier for the person to like slowly increase, and digestively, and to be honest, like how they overall feel. There is also a camp that believes that like just pull the Band-Aid off and increase calories a ton, depending on biofeedback too. Like if the person's dealing with a lot of really poor stress feedback, they're not doing well physically, then yes, I think that calories probably could be increased a little bit more dramatically and quickly. But there's kind of 3 situations that reverse dieting goes with people. And we try to present this to our clients when we take them in or about to take them into like increasing calories. And we always are very upfront with this because you really truly cannot know what is going to happen with the body. And if a coach tells you like, oh, you won't gain weight, they're lying to you. You might gain weight. And so we always say there's usually 3 things that happen. The first, some people lose weight. Some people do lose weight when they increase calories, and this is usually because of a couple pieces. 1, you're getting more nourishment if you're doing a reverse diet well. You're eating better whole foods in higher amounts. You're getting more nourishment, which puts less stress on the body. And so this less stress means usually a lowering of inflammation. It means the body is able to function better overall, just as a whole. Like energy production is better, the cells are healthier. And so all of these things can sometimes cause people to lean out like physically or lose weight. The other reason that I think that sometimes people will lose weight is because they were under eating inconsistently. And so they might have been having days that were really high intake, but most of the days that like they recall and they were tracking were low intake. And so when you bring kind of this happy medium of actually being consistent, people will see weight loss. And so that's the first and obviously the most desired example of what will happen. Like, oh, I eat more and I lose weight. That's amazing. I think the most normal situation is people maintain weight.
I think that's where you need to expect.
Yes.
That I think that's the result that you need to expect. That needs to be like a baseline. Like
yes.
I was talking with someone a few weeks ago and they were telling me that a coach had promised them that they would lose weight and this is the only way for them to lose weight. And while I was explaining to this person, I do agree it is the only way for you to lose weight. It does not mean that you're going to lose weight in the process. What that means is that once you've gotten to a place of maintenance, now, you've readapted your metabolism and your hormones and, kind of gotten back to homeostasis, then you're setting yourself up to lose weight. But if anyone promises you like you're gonna be a hyper responder and you're gonna lose weight and this is the magic, like of course we all look like magicians when we feed clients more and they lose weight.
Yes.
But I think it's from a mental place, you should expect to maintain, if not see, a couple of pounds on the scale from water. Okay. And so that's the third thing is some people gain weight. Okay. And here's what I will say. If you gain weight, slowly bringing your calories up and your food quality is really good and you're still moving and you're walking and you're sleeping and you're de-stressing, it's because your body needed to gain that weight. For other individuals, we will see 1 pound to 2 pounds in terms of water retention because again, we're bringing carbohydrates up and for every 1 gram of glucose that you store about 3 to 4 grams of water. So that is also something where like, don't freak out if you're just a couple of pounds. If it's a 5, 10, 15 pound gain, likely the person was very, very lean or they went about it incorrectly, right? Like they started just eating like ho-hos and cupcakes and highly processed foods. So we want to go about this in a way that keeps you nourished, but also do it slowly so you have time to adapt up without seeing a huge spike on the scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would say the main focus for us when we reverse diet someone, we tell people like, honestly, if you want to continue to weigh yourself, that's up to you. But if it's going to be a trigger, I wouldn't. And instead to focus on different things during this process. Like the purpose of reverse dieting someone is to get them up to a place where their body's adequately nourished. And so when we're adequately nourished, there's things that should be very positive that start to happen. You should, like Liz was saying in the beginning, things that we usually do reverse diets for the reason of, you should start to sleep better through the night because now blood sugar is more regulated throughout the day. And in turn, you're not waking up or having as broken of sleep at night. You should usually start to have better consistent digestion. You go to the bathroom more regularly. You're not having as much bloating. Your body tolerates food a little bit better. Usually hunger cues can start to happen again. A lot of times we talk to people that are like, well, I'm just not hungry throughout the day, or like I skipped lunch because I just wasn't hungry. And so those things are not great for blood sugar. You want to be able to have consistent meals throughout the day, consistent intake throughout the day. And so we start to see people like, I'm hungry again. Like I can listen to my body again to give me cues for those things. Better performance in the gym. People get stronger. They feel better recovery. Like their muscles start to fill in and they look, in my opinion, a lot of times what we see for people, especially that strength train and are under eating, once you start eating enough, you look better, because when you're under eating and trying to do a lot of exercise, you end up fluffy because the body is inflamed. And so when we start to adequately nourish the body, people actually start to look leaner. Their muscles look fuller because their muscles have the energy to do so. And so they look better. So there's a lot of really good positives that start to happen. Periods get better for people. Like all menstrual cycles regulate for people. So there's so many. Sex drive comes back. Like I will say this was probably one of the biggest ones for me, was when I was under eating and overtraining. I was like, from afar, banging body, super lean, super, physique looked great. All my clothes fit great. I had zero sex drive.
And you were moody.
I was moody as AF, like my poor husband. And that's the thing that he always brings up, of course. Whenever we talk about like my past with kind of extreme dieting, he's like, you were just really crazy. Like it was hard to keep up. But now when I'm eating adequately, it's like, oh my God, this is what sex drive feels like. This is what, and like, I've always found my husband extremely attractive. I love him to death. But like when you are not nourishing your body, you will not have the drive. No matter what is on the other side of that. Like whether it's, Mark Wahlberg in his prime. I love Mark Wahlberg. The Rock. Nick hates that I love The Rock.
I love The Rock.
He's so sexy.
Matthew McConaughey is the guy that I look at and I'm like,
okay.
Ooh. Or Johnny Depp. Which are very extreme.
I liked Johnny Depp like in his Treasure Island.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Or like Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah, not Treasure Island. Pirates of the Caribbean. But yeah, Nick hates that I love The Rock, because The Rock is just like, he's an unattainable.
I mean, like, that guy eats like 6,500, 7,000 calories a day.
It's just a physique. It's a body type that just like not many people have. Yeah. And so, but like it doesn't matter how attractive that person is, your body will not push the drive if you do not have adequate nourishment. So like all of these things are amazing things that people don't look at because they get so obsessed with the scale during this process. So that is stuff that we have to look at.
Yes. So I think let's talk about some other really awesome benefits too as we reverse diet. And this is this thing that if you have the knowledge and the education and understanding of how your body works, I think that makes it much easier for you to adhere. So naturally, when we have more calories and we have more energy, we want to move more. So our NEAT, our non-exercise activity, actually increases. I believe it was Jade Tata or Alan Aragon, one of the two people that we follow in the industry, some very, very smart individuals, actually did their own research on being in a calorie deficit versus being at maintenance by filming themselves on camera to see how many times they blinked and how much they fidgeted and moved.
It was Lane Norton.
Yep. Okay. I knew it was like one of the 3 or 4 that we follow. So this is very true. Like think about when you are in a calorie deficit and you don't have much energy, probably the last thing that you want to do is get up and clean your house or go for a long walk or take your kids to the park, right? When you have more energy, you have more energy. Okay. When you have more energy
when you have more energy coming in calories, you have more energy, you typically exert more energy.
Thank you. I was like trying to get that out and it just was like coming very slowly, but you fidget more, you blink more, right? You might even find yourself wanting to do more things around the house or take on extra projects. Like you just have this extra drive because you have the nourishment. The other piece here, this is something that many people don't understand, is the thermic effect of food. And so when you are increasing your calories, if you are increasing, and eating adequate protein and you're increasing your carbs and you're eating fiber and, high quality foods, you are burning more through the digestive process. And so this accounts for about 10, maybe a little bit more, 10%, maybe a little bit more of your total calories in the day when you are eating high quality foods. Mm-hmm. Scratch that and put that out the window if you're eating like really crappy quality processed foods. It doesn't take much to digest those. But this is where I would say understanding, like it's the law of like the returns here. So if I'm eating a little bit more, now I'm moving a little bit more and I'm burning a little bit more, my return is about the same.
Yeah, you're about net. Exactly. Yeah. So here's the beautiful thing about when you do this correctly. Like Liz was saying, a lot of people see reverse dieting as like, well, I just need to start eating more. So you start eating a bunch of, calorie dense foods, not really paying as close of attention to it. And we end up with, weight gain. And it also depends on where you're coming from. Like we talked about, if you're coming from a very, very lean, unsustainable physical place, you will probably put on a little bit of weight, because if you are working to nourish your body and you gain weight in the process, it's likely because your body needed to gain that weight for health. And so there are so many good things that happen with eating more that help you usually maintain weight and feel better. Like that is what we want. And yes, in some very few cases, you might gain a little bit of weight. It should not be excessive amounts of weight unless there was a large discrepancy between where your body needs to be for health and where you were. Like I see people, like this was honestly me. I probably gained about 8 to 10 pounds because I was too lean. I was in a place where my body wasn't going to be healthy there anymore. And when I finally gave up the things that were running my body into the ground, and when my body finally kind of hit that wall and I started adequately nourishing my body, I started holding more. When I was at my very leanest, I was like 157. That was extremely unrealistic. It was prior to my wedding. Stress played a big role in that. When I was at like a competitive stage, I was like 163 to 165. I hung out around like low 170s prior to obviously these pregnancies. And so once I started nourishing my body with enough food and stopped exercising 2 to 3 hours a day, which was unsustainable for my body, I gained about 8 to 10 pounds. And I was still very healthy. I was like, the body dysmorphia was a challenge. The mindset was a challenge for a lot of people, but health wise, so much better. Like 1,000 times worth it once I got over the mindset piece of it. So how do we set ourselves up for a reverse diet? Like, where do we go from? Because I think this is the hardest thing for people. And the hardest part is that like, there's no black and white answer. There is no like, go and calculate X, Y, and Z and do that. It is much more what we tell people is like, you know, especially people that we aren't working with, because with people that we're working with, it's very, we're specifically developing that for them and their individual needs and kind of what's going on. We usually say we need to look at where we're currently at with food. How consistent are we there? And then from there, we regularly increase about 100 to 200 calories like every few weeks. And when we increase, we usually evaluate. So like, how is digestion? How is hunger levels? Are you stuffed eating this much food? Because if someone's truly like really, really stuffed and we're improving density of food so they're not having to eat too much, then we sometimes hold there because that can impair digestion. That can put a stress on the body. And then mentally, it just kind of sucks to be like stuffed and to your brim and not, getting enough calories. And so we want the hunger and the body's ability to use that food to adapt too. So that might take a little bit longer if like someone's really struggling to eat that much food. But a big part of it is like, we need to make sure that we're, spacing meals out and we're doing everything we can to get that food in well. So usually we do about 100 to 200 calories every few weeks. And depending on where the person's at is depending on what calories come from. So like if they're eating no protein, well then, yeah, we need to start adding some protein on top of carbs and fats. Like if they're eating way too low of fats, then I might prioritize fats. Like it's very dependent.